Thank you very much for taking the time out to sit with me and talk about who you are and what you do. Many people may recognise you from Aladdin on the West End, playing the Sultan. How was that experience of playing that role on the West End?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it's such a privilege to work for a big company like Disney in the first place, but also to be part of kind of an original production as well, and the scale of that kind of production, following all the other successful shows like The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast and everything. So to be part of kind of an original Disney production like that, it was huge. And I did it for kind of like 3 years. It was just a joy, the people you work with, the people on stage, backstage, the production team as well. It was such a nice, lovely 3 years, and I really enjoyed my time there.
I think it's such a big musical as well that it kind of radiates its own joy. The musical itself creates that sort of energy that just makes it, I imagine, a fun place to work and to develop.
Yeah, I mean, it's you've got the advantage of having kind of Menken and Ashman's kind of music. So, and all that music has kind of resonated with people for such a long time. All the catchy melodies in the show. It's been going on since the 90s, and people have kind of grown up with it, from childhoods and even just singing it in the shower. But all those melodies kind of resonate with lots and lots of people, especially with me. I think I remember when I first heard it back in the 90s. I was traveling around Canada, I think, at the time, and it still kind of stayed with me. So all those all that music, still resonates with a lot of people.
The latest project that you've been working on that we're aware of is the Boy in the Dress, and the new soundtrack has been released to go with that. So within that musical, you play a character called Raj.
It's funny because I've been playing Raj for a long, long time. I think when we first did Mr. Stink back in 2011, and obviously the show and the book is written by David Walliams, and David's written quite a lot of children's books, that's very, very popular with a young audience. And Raj is kind of the only reoccurring character in all of his books. I think bar one book he's not in. And even when he wasn't in that book, a lot of the kids and a lot of the people who enjoy reading David's books complained and said, well, where's Raj? Yeah, that was quite funny. But Raj is kind of, he's a very much a neutral character in all of David's books. He's the guy that gives kind of sound advice. He's the corner shop owner, in the street where the kind of like the main characters reside of all the stories. And, obviously he's the guy that speaks and to all the other characters, all the transient characters in all the stories. But he's very much kind of neutral, and most of like the main characters come to him for advice or seek wisdom from him, and him being the corner shop owner is like he's the best, the best person to go to, really.
While being very obviously knowledgeable, he's also really funny.
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably heard the music. He has a great number called 3 for the Price of 2, which kind of gives you a clue about his kind of character, that he very much likes to provide and give deals to all his customers, especially with sweets and confectionery, to lots of children. But yeah, he's very much kind of, I'm not going to say a wheeler dealer, but more kind of very kind of entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And how he sells all his products, to people and to his customers.
So what was it like taking on this new character? Obviously from the books, we're aware of the character and how he functions, but to stage a brand new character, was there stress because he was not established before? Not really. I mean, I was kind of, I think the advantage was that I was kind of familiar with who he was, but it was important for him, I think it was important because we did a few workshops of this show. I don't know if you know, there was 3 workshops. We played around with the music and played around with the story. And it wasn't too difficult for me because I know these characters. I think most people know these characters. They've grown up with these characters. Everybody has, where they live. There's a shop on the corner where everybody goes to. 9 out of 10 times it's probably a South Asian chap because of how immigrants have come to the country. First generation, second generation immigrants have come to the country. A lot of those people. I mean, there's a great book called Corner Shop that was written by Babita Smith,
who's a news journalist for the BBC, and it was based on her family setting up a corner shop. What's nice is there's a history to a lot of those people. It's not just the guy in the corner that has the shop. A lot of those people, came from different countries, in the 50s and the 60s because of employment vouchers, and then they were given jobs in factories, in sweet factories, ironically, like the Mars Bar factory, for example. And because they were treated very badly by these factories, they decided to not work for them anymore and create their own businesses. And a lot of these emerged as corner shops. A lot of these characters, a lot of these people, I think, speak to a lot of people because they know these guys, they know these characters, because everyone has a corner shop on their street.
Yeah, like you said, everyone does know someone who's similar to the character, and to have that, not only that representation, but that positive representation of immigration is obviously fantastic. And then layer on top of that, you have the whole story of the boy in the dress being an empowerment as well.
I mean, this is the snapshot of what David does quite well, is that, a lot of the characters that we see in his books represents modern day multicultural Britain. And we don't see this a lot in shows and stories. I mean, something about Jamie is, I think, a more recent example where we do see this representation. But in a majority of commercial musicals and commercial shows, we don't see a lot of this, maybe because some of it's kind of Americanized, dominated by, American culture. But in terms of British musicals, standard British musicals, we don't see this snapshot of modern, multicultural Britain, which I think, with the RSC's production and David's story, and I think it was highlighted, by lots and lots of people that came to see the show, especially in reviews, how important and how crucial and how nice it was to see, kind of a snapshot of modern day and multicultural Britain.
You've touched on, obviously, it's written by David Walliams and there's scored by Robbie Williams and Guy Chambers. Did you have a chance to chat or meet them?
Yeah, we did. I mean, in rehearsals, Guy was there all the time, and Robbie popped in a couple of times, and he saw what we were doing and offered his input. And obviously, I think it must be very strange for writers to see all of their music materializing, on a stage, and seeing other actors, because obviously what they do and write is in their head.
Yeah.
But then the discipline next is to pass that on, pass the baton on to the performers. But yeah, they were very much, hands-on in rehearsals. When we did our rehearsals, they were very much there and offering their advice and support and input. But yeah, they were well connected to our rehearsal process.
There must have been a real broad range of ages and experiences within the show, because obviously The Boy in the Dress is about school kids who are, the empowerment there. Then you've got the adult involvement in the show, such as Raj, and then you've got obviously David Walliams, Robbie Williams, who are considered by many as legends. So you have that real broad range of experiences. What was it like working with a majorative young cast? What were the younger members like to work with? Yeah,
I mean, it's great if you're part of a show like that, where there's like a wide spectrum of younger actors, and kind of newly trained actors as well, people out of drama school, and then young experienced actors, and also we had quite a few senior actors in the show as well. So I think it's very healthy, when you go to, I think all productions should be like that, to be honest with you, because I think it adds value. The senior members of the cast can offer their advice, and I think it's a healthy collective having that kind of mix, that kind of spectrum mix of people. It's so challenging, working with, younger actors, because obviously, as there's always, 3 sets of kids. Obviously the rolling weekly schedules as well. So, and then we're rehearsing on top of that, we're rehearsing different people. But also what's interesting is that, a lot of the kids, the younger actors, brought their own different game to their performances every night. There's a different show, more or less, every night, because there's a different younger actor on, every 3 shows. And a lot of them brought their game, and they were all so good and extremely talented. And so it kept us older boys on our feet.
I had to listen to the launch event for this musical that was hosted by David Walliams and featured some of the cast members performing the songs. Obviously, to launch a new musical soundtrack must have been quite daunting, because these are not songs that people have heard before. How was the recording process for you? I
was lucky because I was involved in the workshops of the show, so a lot of the songs were familiar to me. But yeah, I mean, it's a very daunting task to launch, a new musical, especially an original British musical, because I think new musicals are very, very difficult to subscribe to. You know, a lot of shows in the West End, for example, like Les Mis and Phantom, have a very much, you know, established following, and they've been going on for like 35 years, 36 years. You know, shows like Wicked have been going on for, you know, 15 years. So a lot of these musicals, you know, obviously they were established in America, and through popular culture and everything have transferred to us. So I think it's very difficult for, you know, for writers and producers to get new musicals off their feet. As a nation, we've got great writers, we've got great composers, we've got great performers, we've got great technical people, we've got great designers, we've got great directors. And it's about time that we make a massive change, you know, and create our own stories that are about our new generation. For example, The Boy in the Dress, you know, because the world is a different place now, and these stories need to be told, and they need a platform for them to be told. And where else better than, you know, than the home of Shakespeare and the RSC to do that, but also with a great creative team, people like Greg and Robbie and Guy and David. You know, this is like a very smart, creative team that's, you know, taken on this project. But we need these stories. We need British musicals on our stages. It's about time there's a shift in the paradigm to get something new.
You touched on that it's a production by the RSC. How did you get involved with the RSC?
The RSC has such a great reputation of producing some of you know, the best material on our stages, you know, especially from Shakespeare, but also they're very good with launching and platforming new writers as well. I mean, who else wouldn't want an opportunity to work with them? I mean, it's taken me 20 years. I've been in the business for 20 years. So it's taken me 20 years to work with them. So for me, it was just an opportunity. Yeah. Also, sometimes I think, you know, working in the West End, you know, because I was doing Aladdin for 3 years, it was a nice change for me to get out of London, you know, and be kind of in a different theatre, in a different environment, a different creative environment as well. And so that was, I mean, it's an honour, you know, to work for any kind of, whether it be the National or, you know, the Royal Shakespeare Company. It's an honour to work for those kind of establishments.
You talked about going from the West End to the RSC. So how did you find that change?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best thing about being an actor and a performer, is that you bring out all your disciplines. On one week you could be doing a musical, you know, in the West End, and the next you can be doing, you know, a Shakespearean play or, you know, or a serious play. So that's, for us as actors, to have that kind of discipline to adapt and to go on to different genres of, you know, of productions.
So I suppose the final question is, what's next for you?
Not much really. I think because of what's happened really with the pandemic, and a lot of the work has kind of dried up. I've been lucky enough because a lot of my work comes through voiceover work.
Okay.
I was lucky enough to create my own little mini studio at home, where I was able to record a lot of voiceovers and able to kind of post-produce them and send them off. And so I was quite lucky in that respect. And that's kind of been my bread and butter for the last year while we've all been locked down. Not much at the moment, just a few recordings here, there, and everywhere. I think everybody's waiting really in anticipation of when the theatres are going to reopen. You know, there's not going to be much going on until we kind of get the green light or some kind of indication from this terrible government when theatres are going to reopen.
Do you have a piece of advice or wisdom to young artists who are obviously at the moment are in a state of despair because the theatres are closed? Do you have something to pass on to them?
Yeah, I think it's really important, firstly, not to give up. You know, something like this is a very, very daunting, it's very demoralizing to be in this situation where if some people have trained all their lives, or they're in the middle of training, or they've not started training, think, oh no, there's a pandemic happening and maybe it's not the right way to go. And I would say to them, you know, don't give up, keep going, but also is to learn as much as you can in terms of repertoire. You know, especially in something like musical theatre, for example, if you're a musical theatre artist, is to, you know, what better opportunity, you know, when you're at home, is to be learning all the repertoire of the different shows, all the music. You know, you have such, now that you've got, you know, the internet is open to lots and lots of people. It's an opportunity to absorb all of that knowledge, and I think take that opportunity if you can. So
thank you very much for sitting down and talking to me.
Pleasure.
And I shall speak to you soon. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks, Rhys. Take care.
Bye.